Welcome back to the Upper Tier Podcast, the football podcast we bring you each and every week on the Dynamo Podcast Network. Head over to YouTube, smash that subscribe and bell notification button. Audio versions of the show are available through Spotify. And if you'd like to contact the show, you'll get us on Twitter at the upper tier, or on Facebook and Instagram, the upper tier. Joining me today, as always, on these podcasts, my partner Darren, but we are joined today by a man who needs no introduction to you Manchester United fans. A man who has been described as a super fan, and also a man who is responsible for a lot of the chants and the music and the songs that you hear throughout Old Trafford and around the Man United club. Pete Boyle. How are we, Pete?
Good afternoon. I'm fine, thank you. Yeah, it's good to be here.
Brilliant. Thanks for taking the time to come on the show. Where do we begin? Let's start with the love for Man United and the romance. Where did that all begin?
Well, I always say, which is quite fascinating, really, but I was a United fan by the toss of a coin, believe it or not, because my father was brought up in an orphanage in after the Second World War in Manchester, and playing football one day. And, you know, like as kids, you pick teams and you say, you're picking last or whatever. And they pick teams and they said, right, we're United, you're City, or vice versa. So my dad was United, and he just thought, when he got a little bit older, he thought, I'll look out for the results. And then he started going, watching like the Busby Babes, who started his first real team in the early 50s. And he sort of watched them in the late 40s, but early 50s started going. And it went through, and then he always looked for results, and he had a passion for football. And he took me, I just realised it was 47 years ago last week to my first game, and I'm not as old as that suggests. I was only 4 years old, and we played Aston Villa and in the old Division 2. And so if my father would have been a supporter of Stockport County or City or anyone else, God forbid, then I would have followed my father's footsteps. But fortunately for me, that toss of the coin landed on whichever side up, and that's where my love of United started.
Awesome.
I love the grimace when he had to say the word "C."
I didn't mention the other lot, did
I? And in terms of, you've been involved in some stuff down through the years. I read about the Rupert Murdoch stuff and stuff like that you got heavily involved in getting involved in that being put to the side and stuff like that. But how did you make that next step, like the music and the songs?
Well, I suppose it started off with, don't know. My mum and dad weren't really creative in that way. Like they didn't have my dad used to write the odd, my dad didn't have, we used to write the odd letter about something to do with United or to do with politics to local paper, but none of them really had that creative streak. But I just realised that early on when I was in primary school that I could pen a few words initially. So when I was 9 years old, I had a poem in the local paper. It was like a local children's page, kids page. And I was 1979, and I wrote this poem. I'm football crazy, I'm football mad. I support Man United. I go to watch them with my dad. I like Old Trafford, Main Road 2, Goodison Park and Anfield. Don't you? There's a picture of me with my boots on, like them football, but with them kids' pictures, like, yeah. And I just did that. And then as I got into me my teens, I had another poem published about the 1985 Cup final. And before I got to know Norman Whiteside, I'd have to sort of collar him when I'd had a few drinks and go, "Oh, Norman," and I go, "Where Cup final?" And he go, "Here we go again. Pete's going to do his poem," you know what I mean? And so that was that. And then when I started going to the game, but when I was a kid, I was absolutely, mesmerised by Stretford, in particular in the 70s, and the colour, because in those days, became a bit cool in the later years for people to look a bit moody, and just everyone wears the sort of the dark clothes. I'm not against, each to their own, but it used to be like 20,000 people it seemed in the Stretford end with denim jackets on. Maybe there wasn't that many, and they all had patches on with various slogans about Red Army, and people wore scarves. And going into the match day, you could smell the cigarettes, the beer, which probably not selling in Australia. You could smell the hot dogs and the onions, and probably all other smells you'd rather not smell. But the atmosphere was like, wow. And when I was like at the front, I used to often turn around open mouthed, and my dad would say, "Watch the game." And I'd be listening to, the array of songs United fans had, Pride of All Europe, Cock of the North and We Hate the Scouts. That's still my favourite ever song to this day, you know, of United charity. It came out when I was a kid, and I have a line from the song tattooed on my back. It just says, "We often score 6, but we seldom score 10." And if I'm on holiday and somebody sees it, you know, people know. If you've got to explain it, I just go like, people in the know go, "We know," you know what I mean? And so that was where my initial desire. I loved the football. It was like Tommy Docherty's team. I was very lucky for my age to go to my first game, age 4. And then I went to quite a few games in the 77 season, including the quarter-final, the semi-final against Leeds, the final. And I just thought it was, I was just blew away by the whole concept of United. And I remember going in 1978 to the centenary game at Old Trafford against Real Madrid. And before the game, because it was 100 years of Manchester United, they had a procession of fans from all over, like a representation. So you'd have a march around the pitch. It looked like a political march with people with placards, for example, with Kildare Reds, with Malta Reds, with South Wales Reds, with Los Angeles Reds, you name it. And I was just thinking, wow, all these people follow my team who I lived 2 miles down the road. And in those days, I remember asking my dad, could I have a badge? They had these tin badges with I'm a Cockney Red, or I'm a Brummie Red, I'm a Geordie Red. But I said, no, because obviously I was a Manchester Red, right? But imagine in the last few years of the toxicity of modern fans, how if people proudly were wearing stuff like that, there's something that the local fans, we were proud of our fan base from afar, you know, of our cosmopolitan fan base. Is, you know, you go in the Stretford End and you go in the ground, and somebody before the game, somebody would sing Cockney Reds, we are here. Whoa, someone else would go Brummie Reds, Irish Reds, and then after a bit, everyone just go, yeah, that's it. It was one big family, and that just made me really proud of it. And then I realised at an early age in my teens that I could hold a crowd. Probably looked a few years older than my years. So when I was about 13 at Old Trafford, most people my age, if they started a song, everyone would sort of go, that kid started a song, you know. When I started the song, you know, they might have thought that for a minute, but I didn't give up, because most people would love to start a chant off. They have a few beers, you see them in the ground, and they're like that. And I've seen people older than me, and they get up and they go, and they start something, and if no one joins in, they go, oh. You know, well, when I started the song off, if I started the song and no one joined in, I wasn't embarrassed. People got embarrassed for me, but I just used to carry on singing. So eventually we thought, this guy's not going to give up. So that's how I started out with the singing. But then I realised that I'd probably always wanted to be a footballer or a singer in a cool band. Now I never really made it either way that way. So the next best thing is to sing songs about something you love for United. So there's probably some people who are probably seriously good musicians who've never had 70,000 people singing the songs. So that's how it started out. And I suppose I released an album. I used to write the songs in the bath. I'd say, bring me a pen up, what's happening? And most people you probably having a bath and chilling, thinking about your family, thinking about your holidays, thinking about, I better do some DIY. I used to think, get me a pen and paper. Paul Parker, Ryan Giggs, Eric, obviously, Brian McClare, Wes Brown, and I'd be thinking of songs. And I released an album called Songs from the Bathtub, because I used to make them in the bath. United we sing, and it released it on cassette. And it wasn't like modern day now where we can do these podcasts. You had to go to a recording studio, had to ring people up and say, do you want to come to a studio on Tuesday night, 11 o'clock, with a few cans? We're going to be there for 4 hours singing United songs. It was a die-hard crew who turned up, I can say. And it became a bit of a cult classic, this album, and got voted in Terry Hall for the Specials top 10 albums of all time in the newspaper in England. Number 7, Pete Boyle, Songs in the Bathtub. And then I suppose I was well known amongst a close knit in Manchester. And that sort of album sort of like launched before the internet obviously was taken off, but it launched me to big heights because fanzines picked up on it. It was different. And next thing I know, I'm getting all these orders, you know, cassettes from like from all around. I just naively put like my home address in, and I was getting all these letters, and mostly good letters of people recommending songs. Some of them were dreadful, obviously. Have you thought of this idea? Yeah, several times, but I didn't use it. And it just became, and then I suppose once that first album happened, I got a bit of a reputation, and within like a year or two, I got asked to go on an official club video, and then it sort of snowballed from there really to the days where I was traveling around Europe with a backing band doing songs, and then I got into the sort of events where it evolved, where I do like Q&As and interview players, and if I got one a week, it would be brilliant. I mean, it's not bad saying I'm traveling to Norway and to Ireland and to Sweden, as I have done, and to Malta, sat on a table talking to like my idols, really, you know what I mean, and calling it work. So yeah, it's good.
Excellent.
That was a short, concise answer, wasn't it?
They're the best ones. In terms of the songwriting, I mean, obviously the first one comes out and it's a huge success for you and stuff like that. How different is it then when you go to write the next one? Is the bar set very high? Is the expectation? Do you feel that weight of expectation?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that I never took myself that seriously in terms of some people, like serious musicians, and they have a hit, and in terms of it, they have a hit in the proper style of it in the charts, and then they sometimes get a bit up their own backside and starting it, and they try. I just did it. I released. First of all, people don't really usually release an album recorded in 3 or 4 hours and mixed in one night with about 35 songs on. That was a lot of songs, and the producer heard it, and he'd never heard anything like a little lad singing football songs. Jim White, journalist in England, a United fan, Jim White. There's a couple of Jim Whites, but the Jim White, he reviewed my first album in his book, Are You Watching Liverpool? And he said he scrambled to buy one off the crowds who were all surrounding me. I was selling them from a bin bag outside of Wembley. He wants to buy a cassette, and he goes, I bought one. He said it was foul mouth, tone deaf, full of juvenile spleen, out of tune. He goes, I loved it, and I sort of took that as a compliment. And basically, when people heard it, I said to people, as long as we're getting the right words, I want you to sing. I like the fact that he had a bit of laughing at the end of it and the odd cough before we started, and all that. And it got to that stage where, I released about 10 albums in the end. And one of them, about number 7, it was probably, some people liked it, but there was more music on it. The music was more in tune, and we sang. There was barely any sort of like, obviously it was a bit out of tune, but it was mainly, there was no coughing, or people were sort of getting the words right all the time. And somebody said, I didn't like it as much. That I like the fact when it's raw. So I went back to the basics, and the music got better, and sometimes the production got better, but I left in what people liked. People getting a line wrong on a song, and people coughing and going, and going, okay, we're ready now, and then somebody knocks over the mic and all that, and we kept that in because he thought that's what it was about. But yeah, the expectation level rose, and then it got to the stage before we had mobiles and before obviously the internet. We got to the stage where whoever we were linked with, whenever we were going to sign, people expected me to write a song. Now, I've never claimed to write all the songs. People have written songs before me. Some of my favourite chants I enjoyed myself are probably ones before my time. But yeah, people didn't expect me to write. So I used to write, and I've written songs which have been brilliant and never taken off. I've even written songs for players who haven't ended up coming to United. You get an idea, one for Boban once, and one for Mark Overmars when he was at Ajax. Even had a line for Stoichkov when he was linked with him in '94. And I think the last time I did a song before we actually signed the player was one for that Nasri when it looked like he was nailed on Young United, and then one for Pedro. And I thought, right, I'm going to jinx it here. So if we get linked with a player or anything like that, I decided no songs. No songs. Yeah.
Till he's standing there.
Yeah, so there's just no point. But yeah, and sometimes it's about luck as well. For all the good things the internet is, I maintain, right, there's not as many good songs. It's not enhanced the songwriting taking off as much as people might think it has. Yeah, you'll get people saying, "Oh, I've heard that new song," because 4 people are singing it and they've tweeted a video of it or put it on like TikTok or whatever. But what you get with the internet, you found out early on, like was that in 20 years ago, really, was that one Sebastian Veron's a good example. The amount of great songs, not just me, other people wrote about Veron, but then experts on the internet are saying, "Oh no, the second line should have this line in it, the third line." So when you go out to sing it, people have already changed it. So sometimes they don't take off. So to me, a song is a chant, is a club song when it's been sung en masse, right? Not when Steve and 4 mates have sung it on a video at an airport or in a pub, right? And I mean of any team, this is, right? Because I remember people saying years ago, Tottenham had this really good song and it was Supercalifragilistic Roman Pavlichenko, which sounds good. It's a clever play on words, but it was never sung. So that's not a chant. Dare I say the Fields of Athenry. That song was sung as a United chant before Liverpool. It was sung in the late 90s. But the thing was, some United fans, believe it or not, despite our links and our proud Irish roots and fan base, some United fans wrongly suggested the original song was a Provost song when we know it was a song about the famine, right? So some people who didn't want to be associated with a song, but they thought Celtic-esque and a bit like, political. Liverpool got some musicians in to write the chant a couple of years later, and it took off. So obviously, I know that's a Liverpool chant because they've sang it en masse. It's become a Liverpool chant. But our chant was, "Oh, aye, the Reds will never die. We've watched our team lift 3 trophies high. Hey, Keno, lift those trophies high. With Giggsy on the wing, all they Solskjaer made us sing. Now it's so lonely round the streets of Merseyside." And we used to have the whole pub singing that. And it was a great tune. It's just a shame how it goes. But again, you need to have a chant. To me, there's no point in people saying, "Oh, we sang that before you," or "We sang that." Once a chant has taken off and it's been adopted, that's when a chant you can claim it's your chant, And I just think that's the downside of the internet, really. There was a good song about Januzaj took off through the internet, and there's been a few recently where people posted, and then I suppose once somebody could come out of a really rubbish chant, but once it's on social media now, people think, well, that's it now, whereas in the old days, people could, there was always a chance of another chant. That's why Giggs had a few chants, Cantona had like an album of chants, and other people could have a few chants. If they were good enough, the chants could still take off. Whereas a lot of the time now, with the odd exception like Cavani, people will generally just go with the first chant. And sometimes and the other thing is, it's not any sort of jealousy, believe it or not. I just like a song to be fairly original. And I will join in with any chant if it's original. But I don't want people to sing a chant when other clubs have sung it, whether it be Crystal Palace, whether it be Chelsea, whether it be Liverpool, Man City. If they copy us, that's flattery. I don't, it's inevitable. If you do a good song, people will copy it. But we're Man United, and we should not be copying other teams.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, we are on location here in the beautiful Glenroyal in Maynooth for a very important fundraising night here. Manchester United legends were being joined by Wes Brown and Brian McClare, 2 brilliant choices of players, obviously. But what do these evenings mean to you, reconnecting with fans and going back through the memories and all that kind of?
Yeah, well, it's brilliant. Like I said, I mean, you listened to me. I mean, I remember getting my first United autograph of Mickey Thomas, who's now a good friend, years ago. And just when I got a bit of work at MUTV in the late 90s, to be able to hook up with these people who were my idols. And, for example, the Cup final in 77, my first team, Stepney, Nicol, Alveston, McElroy, Brian Greenough, Buchan, Coppell, Jimmy Greenough, Pearson, Macari, Hill and McCreary. Never forget that lineup. Never forget it's emblazoned on me that. And about 7 or 8 of those players I have in my phone book now. You know, you said to me that before my dad passed away 2 years ago, he must have thought, I was a 7-year-old lad behind the goal at Wembley when Jimmy Greenough and Lou Macari, and Jimmy Greenoff's a good friend of mine now. And it's brilliant. And then moving on to like the early 90s, and to see, looking at Giggs and Sharp and Brian McClare, the first United player since George Best scored 20 goals, and Brian became a good friend down the years. And initially, when he was still at United and he was still playing, me and Brian had a similar taste in music, and I used to pinch myself when he was still in the squad, and I'd meet up with Brian and we'd go out for a few drinks in Manchester and go and catch a concert, go to watch Primal Scream or Catatonia or James, whoever like, and these were great days. And so yeah, and then just to see, any of these players like Wes played such big roles in the late 90s, and in the run up to Moscow and in the championship teams, and these are players I'm watching, and all of a sudden, I remember thinking when I was sharing a room with Brian somewhere abroad, I woke up in the night, and Brian's in the other bed snoring or something, and I thought, wow, is this testimony to how far I've come or how far he's fallen? And someone might say it's probably a bit of both, really. And it's surreal, really, because I've got to a stage where I can sometimes go a couple of weeks and I'm back off to Norway with the legend Norman Whiteside and his legendary wife, by the way, Denise, and David May, and these are all they've all played a role in United's history. And again, I was 13 at Wembley in 1983 when Norman scored a few goals for United, and I was at the games against Liverpool, Brighton, and then in '85 famously the famous goal against Everton. And yeah, it's unbelievable. I mean, I've come back from Norway about 6 years ago, and I'm sat on a plane with Norman here, Robbo there, and I was just thinking, wow, I've come to Ireland, and with Dennis Irwin, and it's proper pinch yourself sort of material. I try and act cool with it all. I think the only time I've sort of like let my guard down was the first couple of years. Whenever I spoke to Fergie or Eric, and they spoke to me and they said my name, they go, "Hello, Pete." Not sure if that's Fergie or Eric, by the way. "Hello, Pete," and I'd go, "Hello," like I was like on a date, like with a girl. You're 16, 17, and you're a bit nervous, and I'm buzzing if like Wes says hello to me, I'm buzzing if a young player says hello to me. But when it was Fergie or Eric, I had to sort of like really pinch myself, I remember once Eric introduced me to his wife, and I'm chatting away, and I leaned over and I kissed the cheeks, and I'm like this. And later on, my mate went, "What are you chewing?" I went, "I'm not chewing anything." "But you are." I just thought I looked cool. "And you, what are you doing?" So I'm there chewing imaginary gum because I thought I was cool with Eric and his wife. What I mean?
Brilliant, excellent. Well, yeah, it is a big night tonight here. Maynooth Town Football Club have put on a fantastic evening here for the fans. Sold out evening with Wes Brown and Brian McClare. So we got a few of our viewers and a few of the fans to send in some questions for you, not to put you on the spot now, right?
Yeah.
But favourite United player?
It's a split. I'm trying to make it concise, but
you can give us two if you need to.
I'll go for Jimmy Greenough and Eric, because until I had plenty of idols in between, like Robbo and Norman and Brian, to be fair, because I was very blew apart by the fact that he'd scored the 20 goals, because we had some great players, some great forwards, but the fact that nobody had scored 20 league goals since George Best was people underestimate what McClare's contribution was to United. But Jimmy Greenough, to me, he just epitomised going to the game with my dad, that team in '77, and you could probably argue that along with Ollie's goal in '99 and Norman's goal, and there's a few, we had a lot of iconic goals, but Jimmy Greenoff's goal in the '79 semi-final against Liverpool is one of the most iconic moments of a United fan in the white striped shirt, and his celebration, he kisses Joe Jordan. So Jimmy Greenoff is one of his, and obviously you can't look further than Eric because of what Eric did for our generation, I think, because of what Eric did, and he was the catalyst to the success, the cliche aside, the final part of the jigsaw. So I'd say I'd go with those two players.
Awesome. And one last one. If you could have dinner with anyone past or present, who would it be?
How many guests can I have?
You can have two.
Two, yeah.
I think Busby and Fergie.
Busby and
Fergie. Because it'd just be good to see, it's almost like the father and the son.
Bit of wisdom at that table, isn't it?
Yeah, but Busby, I mean, my late father would say he loved Busby, but he'd probably say that Fergie eclipsed him, right? But obviously without what Busby did and how he built the club, and and when Bill Shankly, another great man, had said when he looked at the ground after the war, there'll never be a football team play there again. And it was a shoestring budget playing at City's ground while the ground was rebuilt. And Busby not only put up with that, but with a ground where there was no running water at one stage, and he built the club from the bottom up, and he created what was for a long time, not anymore, probably said it was a family-run club in lots of ways. And then Fergie went back to basics. The club had grown, obviously. He went back to basics, and let's be honest with you, he took a lot of Busby's, philosophy in the way he brought the players through. And I think Busby and Ferguson, I could sit there. I met Sam out a couple of times, but I've been lucky enough to sit down and have an hour with Fergie in his office since he's retired. Just sat there drinking cups of tea, and he brought up a tray of biscuits out, and I was trying to be healthy. And he was just, Fergie's got this aura about him, as you know. And when he was working, when he was still managing, I went to see him when he was at Carrington, for example. He was great, but everyone was sort of like, he wasn't doing it scared, but the respect was there. As he walked in, people might go, hello, boss, hello. Like you go, and the press were all like that. Where when I saw him on different, in his own atmosphere, he had the presence still, but he looked like a granddad, like he is. He was in casual clothes. He went, all right. And I didn't know whether I was just coming in to see him and get something signed. And he goes, come and drop a cup of tea. And he was pointing out pictures in his office. And it was just surreal, really. How many people can say they sat there for an hour waxing lyrical about, about United and chatting. I've been very lucky, but I imagine having Fergie doing that and Samat as well. I think that would be the perfect combination.
Brilliant. Well, listen, Pete, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. And all we can say to our viewers, if you're still thinking of a night out tonight, head down to the beautiful Glenroyal Maynooth. Maynooth Town FC have put on a fantastic evening here with Man United legends, Wes Brown and Brian McClare. Pete will be emceeing, no doubt, and giving us a few bars, no doubt, at some stage during the night as well. And we will talk to you again real soon. Cheers, Pete.
Thanks very much.